morning. It's good to see everyone who's able to be out this morning. There are several who have been sick and are doing better, and we're out today, and we're thankful for that. We're going to be in Matthew chapter 26, beginning in verse 17. And we'll see if we get as far as Scott wants me to. Probably not, but I'm here and he's not. There are some who are still sick that we need to remember in our prayers. Dana and Ruth Bryan are both ill and not able to be out this morning. Like I said, Scott had his surgery on Wednesday and he's making progress. Our sister Kathy French needs our continual prayers. Tex Payne is still undergoing his treatments. He goes back again Tuesday to see the doctor again. Brother Ross had his surgery on Thursday and was making good progress. Sister Tiffany Baker had her appendectomy last week, so she's making good progress. Kyle Robinette, Sister Bonnie Hawk's nephew, is being deployed to Poland, and they've asked for prayers for him. And this morning we have Brother Maxwell and Sister Rena James with us this morning, and we're thankful that they're with us. They've been staying with Amy this last week, and we're thankful that they're here, and Brother Maxwell will be preaching for us tonight. So, who else have I overlooked that we need to remember in our prayer? Jack? Deb's not well. Any others? Who does? Steve Tummelson has the flu. Bonnie Hawk is sick as well, yeah. Any others? It's good to see everybody who's able to be out. And again, if you would, please bow your head in prayer, and we'll be led by Brother McCown.
Gracious, loving Heavenly Father, we're thankful for this first day of the week. We can approach you in prayer and assemble with your saints to study your word and worship you in spirit and truth. We are mindful of the many Randy just mentioned that are struggling, recovering from procedures. Please heal them, those that are afflicted with the flu, various other illnesses. Comfort, heal them quickly. We're so thankful for Jesus and the life that he demonstrated, how we should act, and even given himself as a sacrifice that we could be once again redeemed. Be with this study this morning. Guide Randy to consider Matthew 26, Passover, when Jesus instituted the Lord's Supper. Go with us this hour. Forgive us when we fail you. It's our prayer in Christ Jesus' name.
We went through verse 16 on Wednesday night. Could you give me a summary of what we talked about in very few words? Alan, you're always willing to say something.
Did you say me?
Yeah.
What we talked about was, it was basically, some of it had to do with the betrayal of Judas.
It's coming up, isn't it?
Coming up, and then the lead up to the.
Very good. Very good. Anyone else?
Chief priests, Jewish leaders are
Plotting to kill Jesus. Jesus said, I'm going to die in 2 days during the feast. And the chief priests and elders said, we can't do it during the feast because we'll cause a riot. So who is in control? God is. Jesus is in control. And that's when he's going to be sacrificed. So we find ourselves, does anyone else have anything else you'd like to add? Matt? Beautiful. The woman anointed Jesus to prepare him for burial. She understood what was coming. His disciples didn't, but she understood that it was for his burial that was about to take place. Good point, Matt. Anyone else?
Amazing from verse 17, how humble were the disciples. They asked for direction.
Very good.
Wanted to work with Jesus.
Very good. So let's read that. Let's read beginning in verse 17, and we'll read through 25. Matthew 26, 17 through 25. John, would you read that?
Now the first day of unleavened bread, the disciples came to Jesus and asked, "Where do you want us to prepare for you to eat the Passover?" And he said, "Go into the city to a certain man and say to him, 'The teacher says, my time is near, I am to keep the Passover at your house with my disciples.' The disciples did as Jesus had directed them, and they prepared Passover. Now when evening came, Jesus was reclining at the table with the 12 disciples. As they were eating, he said, 'Truly I say to you, that one of you will betray me.' Being deeply grieved, they each one began to say to him, 'Surely not I, Lord.' And he answered, 'Who dipped his hand with me in the bowl is the one who will betray me. The Son of Man is to go just as it is written of him. But woe to the man by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been good for that man if he had not been born.' And Judas, who was betraying him, said, 'Surely it is not I, Rabbi?' Jesus said to him, 'You have said it yourself.'"
Very good. Thank you, John. So beginning there in verse 17, as Brother Maxwell pointed out, what is taking place? What is happening? Brother Ben?
They are performing their yearly observance of the Feast of Unleavened Bread for the first night. And Jesus asks them to do as he says. There's someone that already has a place prepared for them. And introduces the idea that one of them is going to betray him to his death. And they're all confused. I think even to some degree Judas is, because Jesus talked about his death in this. I think we've talked about a couple of times this. Judas maybe wasn't, he knew he was betraying him, but he didn't think he was betraying him to death, probably.
Yeah. That's certainly a possibility. Brian?
I think just this idea of the solemnness of the whole thing, right? We've talked about this before, that we don't always appreciate the magnitude of that meal, right? From not coming from a Jewish heritage, but understanding that it should be very celebratory, right? It's a delivery,
Exactly.
but it's very solemn at this point, right? That it's not the greatness that they're probably thinking too, which back to Ben's point, is probably adding to some of that confusion as well as
Yeah.
why aren't we breaking out the confetti, right? It's a weird set, bringing up a very dark subject.
Be the normal setting for any. What was the Feast of the Unleavened Bread? Why was that so important? What was it? How was it important to the Jewish nation, Jewish people?
To remember the Passover and their freedom from Egyptian bondage.
Freedom from Egyptian bondage. So this was a wonderful time. In fact, in Exodus it says that it was by the mighty hand of God that they were released from this slavery that they were in. So we have this situation where on this first day of unleavened bread, the disciples come. Jesus tells them that there's going to be, in Luke it tells a little more detail, that it's already prepared. You got to go, you're going to see this guy, and he's going to take you, and you're going to show you exactly what I want for this supper that we're going to have. Anyone else so far?
Prophecy of God being evoked.
All right. Prophecy of God being fulfilled. Josh?
We tie this back to 16. What's happening in 16? Judas is looking for time to betray him. And this just further shows Jesus is in control of everything. He knows what Judas is doing. He's already made preparations so that Judas is not going to have the opportunity until Jesus is ready for it. This whole crucifixion scene, it doesn't happen unless Jesus is willing and allows it to happen, because he's in control of every aspect all the way up until the end.
That's it. So Jesus knew what Judas had already done, the work that he had already done, the plan that was laid. What was he going to get for betraying Jesus? 30 pieces of silver. And so he had already had his plan. He got his money. He's ready to invoke the plan. Now he's meeting with Jesus and the other disciples just like the plan was, just like they had done years before. And we find that he tells them to go ahead and see and set the preparation for the supper. Anyone have any thoughts so far through verse 19? Maxwell, anything else?
Interesting, while Judas went to the chief priest and asked for direction, the disciples went to Jesus and asked for direction. And we have to just look at that from a point of view where we need at all times to go to the Master, teacher Jesus, for our direction in life.
Excellent. Excellent observation. Anyone else? Elaine?
I was going to say, so what's going on there in 17 and 18 reminds me of the same thing that went on when he told the disciples to go and find a colt that he was going to ride on into the city. This is Jesus already knowing exactly what's going to happen, who's going to be helping him, how it's going to occur, and instructing them to do it. But not because, and I disagree with this from the lessons in the book, where he thinks that the writer in our lesson book thinks that Jesus had already arranged with somebody in the city for where he was going to have the Passover. But I believe this is more like where he told them about the colt to go get him. Now he's telling them, here's who's going to take care of this. And all you have to do is just go tell them the teacher says. And because of his power and his sight to see this and to plan this and to have this all happen, this is because of God and Jesus' power that all of this occurs. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't agree with the writer in our lesson.
Well,
that
the
says-
writer is going from a historical perspective because you always had to prepare ahead of time for the Feast of the Passover. It wasn't like something just happened that day and we got it all set. You had to do preparation. So that's what he's going from. But I agree with your conclusion. This is all God. This is all God's plan. So I understand his point. You and I just don't agree with his point. Anyone else? So we've already read 20 through 25. And the thought has been made. So here we have Jesus and his apostles together. How many apostles were with him? 12. Including who? Judas had already betrayed him. They're sitting here together. Brian just said it exactly right. This is a festival. This is a celebration of being released from captivity by the mighty hand of God. They didn't do it. The Almighty God did. And we find here, truly I say to you that one of you will betray me. Think about that. That one of you is betraying me of his 12. Closest to him, John 13:1 says that he loved them. He loved them all. He wanted to be with them. He cared for them. And one was willing to betray him. What are your thoughts on this so far? Brian?
John gives us too the washing, right, of the feet that somehow, somewhere in this time frame, right, that's taken place as well too. Just the humility of that Almighty God who delivered them, right, and it's getting ready to do it again in a much greater way. The humility of that, the servitude that went with that. And Judas was one of those two that washed his feet too. After that he leaves and goes out. Just an amazing God.
Oh, it truly is. Because Jesus was there then, just like you're saying, Brian. He was God, is God, was God when he was here on earth. That it's just a beautiful thing that our God was willing to serve and even serve the one who was going to betray him. So you're thinking they're sitting around for this supper. Jesus lays this on them. Was it prophesied that he was going to be betrayed? It was. And now the fulfillment, like Jerry said previously. And being grieved in verse 22, each one began to say to him, "Surely not I, Lord." Why didn't they all just say, "I know who it is. Let me move my plate, a little further away from Judas"? Why was that? Why wouldn't they know that it was Judas?
It wasn't God's plan for them to know.
Well, I don't know.
The other apostles. It wasn't God's plan for the other apostles to know that it was Judas.
Yeah, but mean, wouldn't you think that of all of us that don't, that have been with him, the one who has done some sneaky things is probably Judas? No, they had no idea. No idea. Brian?
I was gonna say, it's given to us after the fact, right? And we're not sure if the disciples knew that he was the one that stole he was in charge of the money and stole from the money, right? So we don't, it's not clear. Somewhere in there had to be some question marks, right? Like, hey, we used to have $50 in there and now there's only 5, right? Kind of thing.
Right.
Some questions, but the Lord was always the one that was in charge, and it's been said several times already. He knew exactly who and what and every little detail of what was going on, and he was the one controlling it all.
Yeah. And Judas could have said, I gave this money to somebody else, and any concern that they may have had, any inkling that he may have been the one. So there's nothing here that would indicate that they have a clue that it was Judas. Not a clue. And so let's read 23 through 25 again, or summarize for me 23 through 25. What do you think Jesus is saying here? And the answer that he got. Anyone? Kelly?
And he answered and said, He that dippeth his hand with me in the dish, the same shall betray me. The Son of Man goeth, as it is written of him. But woe unto that man, that whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It has been good for that man if he had not been born. Then Judas, which betrayed him, answered and said, Master, is it I? He said unto him, Thou hast said.
Very good. So what is that passage saying, Neil?
Well, one thing that came to my mind is hearing those words spoken of Jesus. If there's anything that could cause you of repentance right at that moment, would be hearing his words. And with the other disciples all asking, is it me? That I think of their perspective of following Jesus, but in a state of humility, of not thinking, I would never want to betray Jesus, but humbly asking the question, is it me? Is it I? And then Judas, among the rest of them, hearing Jesus talking about in verse 24 specifically, that who betrays the Son of Man, it'd be better for him to have never been born. Just be looking at Jesus and hearing that. So it shows me just how, again, determined Judas's heart was, where his heart was to
Yeah.
follow through with his betrayal.
Yeah. Jesus pointed it out to him, certainly gave him an opportunity to repent, change his mind. But he chose not to. Patrick?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, today that question would have been answered that he's the man that betrayed him. It's very interesting to me, much like the Savior teaches in parables through questions and allows people to come up with the answers on their own. And that's what he did here with the disciples. And Judas finally caught on and said, "Oh, Rabbi, is it me?" Out of the group. He answered, "You just said it." So it's really interesting to me how that all plays out. I can't imagine doing that, having that patience and ability to teach like that in that moment, and not say, "It's you. You're the one."
Yeah. Oh, you're absolutely right. I mean, he was looking to have him convict himself. And just like he allows us the opportunity to say, yes, I'm in sin or I'm not in sin, and that I need to repent and obey. Jonathan?
I think it's significant that he says the person who betrays me is the one who's dipped his hand in the dish. In other words, it's somebody who I'm sharing food with. It's really convicting, not just for Judas, like I said, for all of us. Of all the kindness and goodness of God, what He's provided, creating us, making this world. He has shared so many good things with us. And while
It's always me over my God, and that's the sad part of sin. Who else? Ann? John? Neither one? It's all right.
We use a term in Jamaica, frenemy. The psalmist in Psalm 41 speak about enemies, friends and enemies. And an interesting verse in the Psalm 41 and verse 9, I'm going to read that verse. Psalm 41. It says, even my close friend, David the psalmist lament, he says, even my close friend in whom I trusted, who ate my bread, has lifted up his heel against me. A similar situation with Judas and Jesus. And he pointed out that he was the one, you can know the one, because Jesus actually gave them a hint that the one who is going to betray me, if you were watching, we both hit the plate at the same time. Our fingers may have taken up the bread at the same time, and it would have been Judas. And he who dip his hand with me in the bowl is the one who will betray me. Verse 23 of Matthew 26, as it correlates with David's situation.
Yeah. Any other thoughts? Brian?
Earlier in this chapter, right, he refers to himself in verse 2 of this about the plot to kill him. He refers to himself as the Son of Man. And I think it's interesting again in this betrayal piece that's how he is referencing himself again as Son of Man. And that, again, from a Jewish perspective, right, they would have looked back to Daniel and to the different times that the Lord talked about this person coming, right? And then we may not totally see, but they would have seen it, and we should have seen it and understood it. We know full well they clearly understood it after the fact, right? As we get that perfect vision too. But it's just a interesting phrasing, right, of how he's doing it, noting that this is something greater than just what you seem to be seeing right here. I'm talking about the Son of Man, right? I'm talking
Exactly.
about the Messiah coming, and this is who you're betraying, and the gravity of that.
Exactly. Brother Jim?
I think more than Jewish tradition, the ironic part is the person dips his hand in the bowl, it's a sign of friendship and trust. This is right opposite.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly right. And they all dip their hand in the bowl. But here's the betrayer does it with him, and we find that that's just the opposite of what it was for. What he was thought to be, was he was thought to be his friend and a loved one. Any other thoughts? Jonathan?
Last coming in, mentioned that they all were there at the meal, dipping in the bowl, because they're all going to betray him on some level in the next day or so.
Yeah.
Judas in a very special way, obviously, but a few verses from now, he points out that Peter will deny him, same with all the other disciples. So I think what they're saying, well, it's not me. It's hard to know exactly what they're thinking, but all of them seem like I have a perspective of, well, I can't be that person, I'm not going to do this. And yet all of them fell short, were not loyal to Jesus on some level coming out.
Yeah. Yeah. Jesus, in fact, says, all of you will leave me. And that's exactly what you're saying, Jonathan. It's they all in some way deny him. You know, Peter does it in a special way in just a few verses. And here we find that Judas is doing it. Ann?
Judas shows a good example of free will, and God can use an antagonist to still further his plan and further his message. And a lot of people would think that Jesus would have scowled at his people, or somehow he tricked them or beguiled them to do things that weren't written in the Jewish law or the Pharisees were seeing. And how can you follow this man yet? Judas was with him every day, everywhere. He was with the other 11 apostles, and he saw who raw
God used a lot of people who weren't very good people. And although I believe Judas was not seen, well, that was a dumb thing to start to say. I don't think that it was obvious that he was such a bad person to begin with. I think it was his free will. I mean, when you're holding the money bag and you've got an opportunity to take, a few denarii out and spend it on whatever you want or give it to whoever you want, and that's a part of your desire, your something that appeals to you, Judas fulfilled that. It was his choice. It was his free will to do whatever it was. He wasn't programmed to deny Jesus, but Jesus said, woe to the one who does. Because you're doing it of your own free will. You've chosen to deny me, to betray me. Alan, do you have anything?
Every time I read this whole story, I think about the fact that every one of us in the room has had somebody probably turn on us at some point, either because they disagree with you or whatever. But now you've got the Son of God who is bringing salvation to the world, and he chooses these men to be around him. And I agree with Jonathan that every one of them, eventually scattered from him. And then we wonder today why people leave the Lord. It happened with him right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's the difference with us and with Jesus is he never did anything wrong.
Right.
And he was willing to forgive every one of them if they repented. And there lies the difference between Judas and Peter.
Very good. Very good. Let's begin reading in 26 and read through 35. 26 through 35. Mike Hawk, would you read those? 26 through 35.
While they were eating, Jesus took some bread, and after a blessing, he broke it and gave it to his disciples, and said, take, eat, this is my body. And when he had taken the cup and given thanks, he gave it to them, saying, drink from it, all of you, for this is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for forgiveness of sins. But I say to you, I will not drink of this fruit of the vine from now on until the day that I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom. After singing a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. Then Jesus said to them, you will all fall away because of me this night. It is written, I will strike down the shepherds, and the sheep of the flock shall be scattered. But after I have been raised, I will go ahead of you to Galilee. But Peter said to them, even if all may fall away because of you, I will never fall away. Jesus said to him, truly I say to you, that this very night, before a rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times. Peter said to him, even if I have to die for you, I will not deny you. All the disciples said the same thing too.
Very good. This feast of unleavened bread, was there to be any leaven in the house at all of the Jews? All leaven was to be outside the house, not to be inside. So this bread that they ate was what? Unleavened. That's why we partake of unleavened bread. So if you hadn't thought of that before, you're a new convert, a visitor, that's why the Lord's church takes unleavened bread. When Jesus instituted this supper, this night, that's why we partake of it in that way. The fruit of the vine is a phrase that was used at that time, indicating the juice of the grape. That's why we have grape juice to partake of. Now, let's look at this passage. And I want to say this. The brethren that preside here at this congregation over the Lord's Supper do an excellent job. They focus our attention not on the Civil War, not on other things, that can get my mind distracted and think about something else, it's about Jesus. Prophecy about him, the reading of him in the New Testament, that's what we're to focus on. Not on some president, not on some statue, anywhere else. It's about Jesus. And I think we do a fine job at that. Most congregations that I visit with Claudia, they do a good job of keeping us focused on Jesus. So we find here, anybody want to say anything about that? What I just said. Very good. Jesus says, take, eat, this is my body. What does that mean? Take, eat, this is my body. Now, I will call on some who don't usually say anything. So if you look up just for 1 second. Neil? You were.
This is the bread as far as what we take of the Lord's Supper. But we're focused on the sacrifice his body upon the cross.
Very good. Take, eat, this is my body. Jonathan, I think you had your hand up. That's it. That's it. This, he says in Luke 22, verse 19, it goes on to say, do this in remembrance of me. So now this supper that they were eating, this festival feast that they were eating, is now all about him. It's not about that's delivery from slavery. It's about Jesus' deliverance from sin for all of us. Take, eat, this is my body. So what should we be doing when we partake of the Lord's Supper, eating the bread? You and I individually, sitting in your pew. Now that we all take it, and we take it all at the same time, what are we thinking about? Or what should we be thinking about? I almost saw some eyeball. Dwayne.
Paul teaches us in 1 Corinthians that we're supposed to be focused on him and also how we are living for him at the same moment.
Right. The main thing is, it's about him. Don't get this confused. I'm afraid that sometimes we think that I'm supposed to be thinking about the sin that I've committed. Get that out of your mind. Do that before you come. Jesus is telling you to discern the Lord's body when we're partaking. And if we don't, he says in 1 Corinthians 11, we're eating and drinking damnation to ourselves. It's all about him. It's not about me. It's me at 10:40. It's not me at 11 o'clock when I'm taking the supper. You see that? It's all about Jesus. All about Jesus. And we read here in verse 28, for this is my blood of the covenant. So it looks back, and now it looks forward to the blood that is going to be shed and is going to be washing the sins away. We find that they go to the Mount of Olives. About what time is this? At night. The supper started probably 7, 8 o'clock. They probably go up to Mount of Olives about what? 10, 11, 12, midnight? So are these disciples tired? Yeah, they're probably tired. Now, Scott wanted me to get to 56, but I think I've done pretty well. So, and he tells them again, like was pointed out earlier, all of them are going to fall away because of the shepherd, and the sheep are going to leave. He says that he's going to be raised from the dead, and then Peter makes his declaration, I will never leave you. I will even die. We find in verse 36. Let's read 36 through 46, and Ben, would you read those?
Then Jesus went with them to the olive grove called Gethsemane, and he said, sit here while I go over there to pray. He took Peter and Zebedee's 2 sons, James and John, and he became anguished and distressed. He told them, my soul is crushed with grief to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me. He went on a little farther and bowed with his face to the ground, praying, my Father, if it is possible, let this cup of suffering be taken away from me.
what do these passages tell us? What are these verses saying to us? So Jesus goes away with these men into the garden. He takes 3 with him, the special 3, Peter, James, and John. And then what happens? Jesus goes and prays, and what does he say? What's his point?
If it be possible at all, let's stop it.
Yeah. So he comes back. What were the apostles doing, those 3? Sleeping. What time was it? Probably 1, 2 o'clock in the morning after all these prayers. Would they be famished? Yeah, they'd be worn out, I'm sure. But Jesus is thinking, you got to know I'm going to die. Your adrenaline should be pumping. You should be able to be awake. But we find that the flesh is not able to do it. The spirit was willing, but the flesh was weak. And we find that these men, good men wanting to do what was right, weren't able to stay awake. So any other thoughts on this particular part? Brian?
The burden of this is not just I know I have a moment to go through that deeply anguish, the sweat like drops of blood, right? I mean, this is physically, emotionally just devastating, right? But I love, just as Ben emphasized, not my will, but yours.
Yeah.
And that faith that he demonstrated for us and that love he demonstrated for us is to continue forward.
That's it.
Trusting in God.
That's it. I wanted to take some time to talk about this, where the scriptures teach in Luke about the sweat as drops of blood. You know, that doesn't happen very often in medical history even. But someone gets so stressed, so just overwhelmed with stress and issues that may be on their mind. And what happens is small capillaries in the forehead can actually burst, and it will bring blood, sweat. Doesn't happen very often, but it happens. That's probably what happened here with Jesus, to Brian's and Ben's point. This was so devastating a situation. He knew knew he had to do it, but yet he knew what it was going to be like to have to go through it. Because he's God. And guess who he did it for? Gary Wilson, Randy Taylor, Randy Monroe. He did it for all of us. Why? Because he loved us. He wanted us to be in heaven with him, and to be able to hear him say to us at the end, well done, you good and faithful servant. Our time is up. I got through 46, or we did, and I appreciate your help. And we'll carry on from here on Wednesday night.